What do you think makes work better?
People. I mean, without a doubt, it's people. You have to be working with folks that inspire you, that challenge you, that sometimes frustrate you, but in a positive way to make great things.
This podcast is brought to you by Hey Taco, the only peer-to-peer recognition platform that uses tacos to help teams around the world share gratitude. I'm Doug.
I'm Una.
This is our podcast, Amazing Teams. Hey everyone, welcome to Season 3 of the Amazing Teams podcast, where we explore all the things that make work better. Today, we are excited to be joined by Carl Smith, owner of the Bureau of Digital. Carl, welcome to the Amazing Teams podcast.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Una.
Of course. Tell our listeners a little bit about the Bureau of Digital.
Sure. So the Bureau of Digital, being renamed the Bureau, stay tuned. The Bureau started in 2012. It was 24 owners who got together that didn't know what they were doing in terms of business. We were all running web shops, and we figured out that together we were a lot smarter than we were apart. And fast forward now, I'm not the best at math. We'll call it 13 years forward. We have about 1,500 members, 25,000 folks have come through events and such. And we're getting together every day to help each other with everything from clauses and contracts to avoiding layoffs.
And Carl, you were part of the founding team, but now you run the whole thing. How did that happen?
Yeah, so I was actually invited to the first event. And it was funny because I knew who they were. The guys who started it were both named Greg. And the Gregs were at a shop called Happy Cog, where responsive web design started, digital project management. These guys were just doing everything, right? Web standards, for God's sakes, let's back it up to Jeffrey. Like web standards started there. And they reached out to me about going, and I was like, I know who you are, but why do you know who I am? And they said that they had been following me and some of their team had seen me speak, and they thought I was either really smart or totally full of shit. And they didn't know which. And I was like, I don't know either, so I'd love to be there. But for the first 2 years, I was just an attendee. I just couldn't get enough of it. And then in 2014, they invited me to be a partner. And then in 2016, I ended up buying them out. And so I've been rolling ever since.
How long did you run your web shop before? And did you continue running it as you started with the Bureau? How'd that go?
So I started my shop in 2003, June 2nd, 2003. And I would say I ran it for about 10 years, but it kept going for 14. Those last few years, I wasn't really paying attention. But the Bureau started in 2012, so my shop kept running. But then it came to a point where I had to make a decision. We had a little bit of a life scare. They found a tumor. My wife, they found a tumor in my wife. She was not the tumor. Don't get that confused. And I was like, I got to do something. I got to figure this out. And the other person, Greg Hoy, who was active, he was also in a situation where he had to figure something out. So he decided he was going to reboot Happy Cog and get that rolling again, and just said, if you want the Bureau. So I said, yeah, I'd much rather reboot this or find a way to elevate it than to go back to something I'd fallen out of love with.
I just got to chime in here and say these names that Carl that he's ringing off might not mean anything to you, but these are fellows that really helped me in the beginning of my career, that really kind of inspired me. The web standards movement was how I kind of got into this field. So I love hearing those names.
Are you giving them a taco, Doug?
I'm giving them tacos for sure. Jeffrey and Happy Cog.
All the tacos. And I'll just say those guys are still such a just inspiration and influence for me. It was so funny because Jeffrey was on our bookshelf. And then the next thing I know, I'm losing to him in a pitch. And I didn't like that. I wanted to win. But it was kind of cool to get to know. So to your point, Doug, yeah, these are the OG of the web, man.
Yeah, I have a couple of Jeffrey's books on my shelf. So they're the type of books you just they just stay there, right?
Yeah.
They're not the books you give away or recycle. They remain.
They do. Yeah.
So Carl, from your time as an agency owner, and then now you're helping other agency owners and members make work awesome. What do you think makes work better?
People. I mean, without a doubt, it's people. You have to be working with folks that inspire you, that challenge you, that sometimes frustrate you, but in a positive way to make great things. And I think a lot of what we've lost, he said, get off my porch or get out my yard. I think a lot of what we lost is that connection. Like we went distributed at Engine in 2008. And even then we knew we had to get together at least twice a year so that we remembered who we were, so that we could see each other. And you know, it was so funny. We had a retreat. We were about 40 people. We had a retreat, and this was just a fun retreat. You weren't supposed to work. And I had a couple of the different teams come up to me and say, hey, we want to work because we don't get to be together. So are we going to get in trouble if we work? And I was like, no, you won't, but that's cool. But the thing I realized was they had never seen each other, never been in each other's proximity. And when you haven't been with someone, like hung out with them, shared a joke, you know, had a beer, whatever, you don't realize what it is to let that person down. That's not a thing. But when you've hung out that one time, it's not like you're 800 miles away and I close my laptop and I don't care. Now, Doug is that person who told that joke that we all thought was so funny. And then I found out that we both love Iron Maiden, right? And now I'm not just closing my laptop, I'm letting Doug down. So I better go ahead and do the extra thing. But I think 100% it's the people.
Carl, one thing you said also when we were preparing for this podcast, you also said something around which inspired me that day to close my laptop and be done. I'm just kidding. It inspired me, but I still have work to do. But you're like, if you don't feel like doing something, just don't do it. I was like, wait, what? What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, the reality is a lot of us, we don't like to be told what to do, even by ourselves. And so I talk to my team like every other week. Right? I know it sounds like we see each other in Slack every day. We're always there if we need help each other. But for the most part, I work alone and I'll see my list. And if I just can't do it, if I can't figure it out, or if I'm just clicking open tabs in Chrome, then I'm like, okay, I'm just not going to work. And I will go read a book, or I'll go for a walk, or I'll play with the dog, or I'll maybe do a chore. Maybe I'll clean the gutters, right? But I'm going to do something else. Now, that whole time, I'm still thinking about whatever the thing was. In very drastic cases, like I'll do time boxing, I'll do all that kind of stuff. But in the most drastic of cases, I will write like 10 times, I will not update the sponsorship doc. I will not update the sponsorship doc. I will not. And what I do is my brain's like, tell me what to do. I'm going to update that damn sponsorship doc right now. There you go. That's how that is. So for me, it is. It's like if you try to force yourself to do it, you're not going to. You have to get to a point where you remove yourself from it or tell yourself you're not allowed.
Doug, is this how you approach when you're doing your design work and creative work?
No, but it's funny because you mentioned time boxing, and my son, we were doing something, researching something, and I introduced him the other night to time boxing, and he thought it was the funniest thing. Like he's like laughing at me, like my dad's crazy. He's time boxing me.
It works.
It does work. And sometimes it helps, right? You know, if you limit yourself, you set parameters, it kind of forces magic to happen sometimes. So
I completely agree. I look at things as games too. It's like last month I told Lori, I was like, I think we could set a high score on profit for the year if I can just get these few things in. So I'm like sitting there watching numbers, but thinking of them as scores, right? And trying to get the best that I can. Yeah, it's so challenging when you are working on your own. The other thing I'd say, Una, is sometimes I'll be like working and I'll just look around and go like, it's the environment. And then I'll go to a coffee shop, or there's a little bar down the street or whatever, and sit outside and hear the background of noise and stuff. And for whatever reason, that gets me focused. Like sometimes I need a little bit of chaos to really dial in.
That reminds me of our previous guest, Skylar. He was talking about how he gamifies he was talking about doing push-ups and gamifying his work. And I was like, that's pretty creative.
Because sometimes you just have to get something done, right? There's a deadline. So to be like, hey, I'm going to go for a walk. You're like, well, but I actually like someone's relying on me to get this done, right? So I need to do it. So how do you make it more fun for yourself? You gamify it. But so many times, especially with creative work, the ideas don't come when you want them to come, right? So you go for a walk and then you're like, oh my God, I just had a light bulb moment. And then when I come back, it's so much easier to write that email. Whereas before I was stuck on what to write.
Well, it's actually, I can't remember what they call it, but it's like minute amnesia, right? It's like very focused amnesia when you try to force yourself to remember something. We say, what was that person's name? I can't remember that person's name. And your brain's just like, stop yelling at me. Why do you keep yelling at me? And then you go for that walk and your brain's going, by the way, it was Larry. And you're like, oh, Larry, that's right. And to your point, Una, like if you're on deadline, for me, that pressure is enough to make me do it. It's when I don't have pressure and I'm not very good at manipulating myself because I'm like, really, I see what you're doing. But there is something about that actual pressure of not letting somebody down that I think does kick me into gear every time.
Have you tried public accountability? You tell everyone on your team, if I don't get this done by Friday, please send me a text that I'm lazy. Call me names.
I have not done that. I will say my dad taught me this thing where it's like, if there's something you really love and you really want to do, make that the reward. And you're not allowed to do it unless you finish the thing. So every Monday, and I'm not really a planner. Every Monday, I look at everything that could get done. And then I say, okay, which of these things will make the biggest impact this week? And I will, and that I have no blockers on, right? Stand up with one person, it doesn't go well. So I'm sitting there and then I'll say, okay, and if I get all of this done by Friday, then at 3:00, I can go down to Players, sit outside in the sun, have a cold beer, and read the 5th book of Dune, right? Like whatever it is. And so like even today, I'm thinking about that. I got like 3 things I really got to get done if I want to have that deliciousness out in the sunshine. So that to me is another thing, is like setting real rewards for yourself. But it's so much, I can't remember, it's, if you ever, Stephen King wrote a book on writing, and it's just his process for writing, right? It is phenomenal. And the thing that I love the most about it was he talked about his writing space. Like he said, the goal is not to be creative. The goal is to have a space in which I'm able to be creative. So he doesn't force himself to be creative. He just goes into the room that he has set up where he's going to do his writing, and it comes to him because that room is only for writing. That room is only, and so when he goes in there, his body, it's muscle memory. It just remembers. My other favorite thing he does is he writes and writes and writes, but he never edits. He just writes until he's done. He puts it in a folder. He puts it in a drawer. He goes away for 2 weeks. He comes back and then he reads it and edits it. So this idea of we're constantly editing ourselves, I think is also one of the things that frustrates us and makes it hard for us to accomplish things. So I try to adopt that, but it's like Grammarly is probably watching me eat dinner and telling me that should be an Oxford comma. I have to turn Grammarly off if I'm trying to be creative, because it's just going to stop me all the time and tell me I'm dumb. I don't need that. Right?
You can turn it on later, 2 weeks later, be like, okay, now go to work. Now I'm ready.
That's it. It's like, it just kills me that I'm like working and it's like, rearrange this. And half the time it sounds much worse, Like I love the idea of Grammarly, but they're drunk. It's drunk right now.
I'm curious, this is a question for the two of you. You're both obviously the creatives and you worked in similar industries for a really long time. And then Carl, you ran your shop, which means you had to be with people a lot, even though you were distributed. And now you're working mostly individually, of course, with a lot of different members, right? And then Doug, you were working as an individual performer a lot as a designer, and now you have to talk to me every day. You don't have to, but we talk fairly often, right? How does that work? Does that drain your guys' energy to work with other people as creatives, or is it it fills you up?
I'll yield the floor to my good friend.
Yeah, thanks, Carl. It fills my cup, and a big part of my life is people, right? I look forward to people. I look forward to bringing people together. Growing up, I was always trying to throw the parties. I was that person that loves bringing people together. And so for me, it's definitely filling, right, to work with people. And in fact, a lot of times I need people to kind of help me push things along. And so you'll probably see me doing it all the time, Una, like, hey, what do you think of this or this color or this color? Like help me make this decision. So for me, I rely a lot on other people for my just getting stuff done. I'm my worst critic. So like, I can't be happy with my work ever. So you can help me overcome my disappointment, my dissatisfaction with some of my design decisions. And you probably see that quite often.
I feel a lot of what Doug said. It's very relatable. For me, I think I'm on the weirdest sliding scale of introvert to extrovert. It's like I run extrovert 3 days and then I need a day and a half or 2 days of introvert. To your point, there is this part. Like I think energy is any time, right? It goes between 2 points. And if you don't have that second point and your energy is just going out, that's burnout. Nothing's returning it. So you need something you're sending something to that comes back. And those are people, right? People do that for you. So for me, it's like when we put on an event, and that we saw this with Leadership Love last September, I felt like I was at a wedding for 3 days. I knew everybody, I cared about everybody, but it wasn't my wedding. I was more like the organizer of the wedding. And so I am just on the whole time. There is no time to not feel good. There is no time to not smile. There is no time. I even say it and I'm doing it, right? And the thing that's hilarious about it, Una, and I've talked to other organizers about this, for 2 or 3 days after an event, we'll be walking down a hallway, not sure if we know somebody or not. So we just go, hey, right? And everybody's like, is that the nicest person or should I run away? Like, I don't know what's happening right now. The other thing I'll say is that while we do need these other people and we need them both for creative reasons, for just humans, we're social animals that want to be self-important. It's really weird. But for me, I also need that time where it's just nobody. So I can process and really expel a lot of stuff out of my brain because it gets messy up here. And once that happens, then I get to that point where I'm like, I want to show a human, right? So it's an ongoing cycle for me.
Yeah, it's like you're always balancing in between the two. Like there's no extremes necessarily. The extremes are bad. That's what drains energy or doesn't have enough creativity or enough energy.
Exactly. And the one other thing in my role is I talk or meet 2 or 3 new people a week. So that, because you think about it, right? Like when you first meet somebody, all your stories are new again, right? It's like they don't know about the time in Barbados where we were at that bar and the monkey came in. I get to tell that story, right? Whatever it might be. And so there's this excitement and this enthusiasm, this newness, just like a first date, right? And then you've got those times where you catch up with the person who was in Barbados, right? And you're like, you remember when the monkey came in, right? And it's just like, to me, there's such a mix that you need as well of new and familiar. I won't even say old, but just familiar. Because sometimes you need somebody who just knows and you don't have to explain. And sometimes you just want that freshness.
I kind of feel like I need to know the monkey story now.
I just made it up. It doesn't even exist.
Oh, what? I was hoping for a good story too. Like we had this Leadership Lives offsite in Barbados and a monkey walked in and drank my beer. No. Oh.
You were there? I couldn't believe you picked up I didn't know they could actually grab a beer. So when he did, no. Duet Improv champ, state of Florida, 2 years in a row.
Oh, nice. Nice. You said something that I want to touch on. You said when you go to these events, it kind of doesn't matter how you feel, whether you're having a bad day or you feel like you just want to sit down and call it a day. You have to smile. You have to greet. Like you're the host, right? You're hosting hundreds of people and no one cares. And when you and I were prepping, you said something. I wrote it down because it was so good. You're like, as a leader, you need to know the extra impact breathing can have. Right? You said when you're running your web shop, you would breathe differently. People are like, oh my God, we're having layoffs tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right? The business is say more about that because the breathing, I'm like, clearly it's an exaggeration, but it's so true.
I'll share this story. This story is when it hit home for me, the extra weight that authority brings with any conversation. I was in my early 20s. I was at an advertising agency, and one of our clients was this giant bank in the Southeast called Barnett. Had like 700 branches, like a big deal. And I'm meeting with the director of marketing, Roseanne Duran, not making that up. That's her name. And Roseanne, we're sitting there talking and the president of the entire bank walks in, right? The CEO, whatever. He was the top guy. His name was Charlie Rice. And Charlie walks in and this was figure mid 90s. And he picked up a pack of Post-it notes and he had never seen them before. And he goes, what are these? And Roseanne goes, oh, they're Post-it notes. You write on them and you stick on stuff. Now, Post-it notes have been around, but Charlie didn't know how much an ice cream cone cost because they gave him a Lambo for his birthday, right? He has no idea what's going on in the world. So he goes, oh, how much do they cost? And Roseanne said, oh, a pack's probably like $2 or $2.50. And he goes, oh, wow, that's kind of pricey. And he put it down. A week later, there were no Post-it notes in any branch throughout the entire Barnett network because Charlie said this is a waste of money, right? 2 weeks later, I'm on their floor and Charlie is in the closet and he's tearing the supply closet apart. And I'm like, I don't work there, but I know who he is. I've presented to him. I'm like, Charlie, can I help with something? He goes, where are those little sticky pieces of paper things? He said, I've looked everywhere and I can't find them. And I really want them. We're doing this brainstorming thing. And I told everybody I'd be right back. And it's been like 20 minutes and he's just melting down. And I'm like, Charlie, I got some, I'm just 2 floors down. Let me go down. I'll grab some and I'll bring them back. So I come back up the elevator with Post-it notes. I see Roseanne. She goes, what's going on? I'm like, Charlie's losing his mind because everybody overreacted, right? He sneezed and now he's drowning in Kleenex.
So he didn't even say that, hey, you need to remove all Post-it notes from off. He just said, hey, those are expensive. And then people were like, that means we should remove them.
Yeah. Throughout Florida and Georgia, 700, 800 branches, gone. And so that's the thing you don't realize, right? It's like you come in and whatever energy you have is the energy that the team is going to pick up on. I might have told you this, Una. One time, I would do these midweek updates. So because we were distributed and we were around 40 people and we were in 8 time zones. And I mean, it was, I got my little itch here. That's my little, I didn't like it. And I would do this midweek update. It was just a video about how things were going. I would sing happy birthday if it was somebody's birthday, that kind of thing. And one day, one of the people I had known from even before I had my shop called me and said, hey, you're scaring the kids. Like what? She goes, your weekly update? You had sunglasses on. You sounded angry. What's going on? And I said, we are so low on cash. And she goes, well, it came through. And you need to realize everybody's wigging out now. And I went back and I had like 30 or 40 of these videos, right? And I went and I looked at our bank balance. And when the balance was low, I grabbed a video and I looked at it. And when the balance was high, I grabbed a video and I looked at it. When we were flush with cash, I was headlining Vegas, right? I was just everybody's best friend, making jokes. How you doing? What's up? When we were low on cash, I was like, and if you can't get that shit done, what are we going to do? Right? I didn't realize how just different I was. And it was all along that. So I think that's the other thing. It's like you realize as a leader eventually that you have to either share what's going on with you or remove yourself if you cannot be present. And that was, I learned this from Project Inkblot, a diversity group that we were working with. When we come together now, like I will tell Lori and Meredith, I'm gonna be like, hey, I'm having a great day and I'm feeling super goofy. So if I seem to dismiss something you say or just laugh inappropriately, I'm just feeling good. Or, we've had people in these meetings, and I'll do it with other folks too, and they'll be like, I just had a fight with my kid and I'm angry and it's nobody here. I am just mad at myself and I'm mad at all these things. So there's no reason we can't do that we can't just tell people at the beginning of a meeting, this is what I'm bringing in. And I wish I'd known that a lot earlier because I would have saved some friendships probably.
Doug, you always talk about the wake, right?
Right. Yeah.
Say more, share, because that's kind of your version of the impact your breath can have. How do you think about the wake?
Oh, the wake, like we're always looking forward. We never look over our shoulder at the wake we leave. And so, yeah, that's kind of the story.
Yeah. And also, don't look back because you're not going that way.
Yeah. I mean, you always have to be looking forward, but it's healthy to take a peek over your shoulder to see the effect you're having on others. And so that's the wake, as a boater, that's you kind of have to always know what's behind you because people can come up on you and you have to know how to respond when people are coming up on you or passing you. And those are people that are in your wake, but eventually you could be in their wake. And so, yeah, I like the wake metaphor because I think there's a lot of people in this world that don't look at their wake, especially a lot of people that drive on the Washington Beltway. Those people do not look in their wake.
That's a beautiful metaphor. It really is, because people can ride in your wake, right?
Sure.
They can have fun. They can also get wiped out if you're
Yeah.
not careful, right? That's the cautionary tale.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, so you can either be focused on moving forward and not care about the wake you're leaving behind you, or you can be a person in life that, keeps an eye on your wake and helps people that are stuck in your wake, or helps people to overcome your wake, So I do love the wake metaphor, but everyone has a wake. And I think not everyone knows that.
You just reminded me of a story. This was from the very first Bureau gathering, right, in Portland, Oregon, at the Kennedy School in 2012, March of 2012.
The Kennedy School is amazing, by the way.
It's so amazing.
I'll tell you, Doug, later what it is, but it's so cool.
It is absolutely haunted. It's a whole different podcast. But what happened was, we were there, and I was sharing a story with the table about a time I let somebody fail. I knew this probably wasn't a good plan, and I let him fail. And what happened was, I won't go through the whole thing, but we had a really wealthy client, and they had a product, and there was nowhere to promote it. And so we decided, with the backing of this billionaire, that we would create a magazine so we would have a place to put the ads. Okay. Now, I wasn't involved in this. And but it was brought to me, and they said, hey, we want to do this. What do you think? And so I would always do the same thing. I would say, tell me the story of doing it and what the impact is. Tell me the story of not doing it and what the impact is. So the story of doing it was that the client was going to be so happy, and they were actually going to hire writers. They were going to actually do an issue of the magazine, not a comp, but an issue. And I said, what if the client doesn't like it? They said, well, it's not that big of a deal. It's not costing that much. It's not this, not that. I was like, okay. I said, well, y'all seem really passionate about it, so sell it with the passion. I have some concerns, but this is your decision, right? They hired a writer who had destroyed our client in the media. And that was the first thing the client saw, was the name of this person who had just abused the mess out of them publicly. He loses his mind. He threatens to fire us, all this kind of stuff, says very inappropriate things to the team. And I ended up having to call him and say, hey, yell at me. I hit mute and let him just yell. And I heard at one point he was like, are you still there? I'm like, yeah, I was just, I'm letting you keep going. And afterwards I said, here's the tough thing. I need you to apologize to the team. And he's like, I didn't do anything. And I was like, no, you used language. You called people some inappropriate things. We're going to have to leave if you don't correct that. So we're going through all this. So I'm telling this story to these people. And one of the attendees said, why the hell would you let a green project manager convince you to risk the future of your company on one decision? And it just came to me. I was like, I'm not building a company. I'm building a team. And that team has to fail. And they have to fail epically to learn what it is to succeed and to not fail again. And if I tell them and I save them and I pull them back, then all they're going to say is, Carl told me, Carl wouldn't let me. But if I let them go and say, hey, I'm taking my hands off the bike, training wheels are off, and they crush, that's great. If they crash, that's horrible. But either way, they did it. They crushed it or they crashed it. But either way, they did it and they learned from it. Whereas if I had stepped in, I would have kept them from success. So, and I'll just say, I don't think that person's shop is running anymore. I'm not sure. But hey, neither is mine. So there we go. What am I saying?
Well, sometimes people think that certain things always lead to success, like not letting people fail, like not saying no to a client. I'm like, well, if you look at the data, we probably fail in equal ways, right? Regardless of how you approach it. Might as well try something new.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is just you kill everyone's enthusiasm if you don't let them try stuff. And I'll never forget, my only boss I ever had, Melanie and I, we were at a conference. I think it was a 4A's, American Association of Advertising Agencies conference. And I was Melanie's number 2. And the woman on the stage said, how many of you out there are like second in command? It's like I raised my hand, and they were like, are you allowed to do what you want, or do you get told what to do and you get put in a tiny little space and you have to wait to be let out of that space to do things? And I just kind of looked at her and she went, shut it down. I was like, okay. And the person went on to say, if you're running something and you don't let them help, that's why you're there on Sundays. That's why you're there before anybody gets there and you stay until they leave. You got to take your hands off the wheel and let them do stuff. And before we left that event, she looked at me and she went, all right, next week, just do stuff. We'll see how it goes. And I was great. And you know what? Everything got better because I stopped feeling like I had to ask when I knew what was going to be better. And I messed up. I screwed up some major things, right? A $3 million campaign because I made a big mistake, but I never did that again, right? Okay, maybe it's not the best example.
There's smaller ways too, but maybe $50.
Much smaller ways.
And learn the same lesson, right?
Hey, but who wanted to work with an up-and-coming company called Comcast anyway? Whatever.
Well, no one wants to. People kind of have to.
And there lies the crux of creative services.
So true.
Carl, one more question, and this is about the Bureau. You have a very diehard group of people that meet in places around the world to learn from each other, that give talks to each other, that help each other out. How do you create a group of people that don't work together, but that really enjoy spending time together and commit time and energy to be part of this community you've built?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I get asked that a lot. I get asked, why is that Slack so active? Why are these Zoom calls? People are so passionate. What's going on? I think there are a few things. The first one is the Bureau oath. Like the very first time we got together, one of the things that Greg's did was create this oath. It's a verbal non-disclosure. And it's basically, I promise not to share anything a reasonable person would deem sensitive or confidential during the time we share together, right? And so basically, if somebody's in a conversation in one channel, it stays in that channel. If they're in a conversation with one group, it stays with that group. It's a safety. It's an understanding. Another thing is we tell people from the beginning, we're member-led and we're non-solicit. If you come in and you start just selling, then I'm going to have to ask you to leave. We have one channel called Shameless Self-Promotion. Of the 1,100 folks in Slack, 900 of them have opted in to that channel because they want to hear it. They want to see it. Go there as much as you want. Get it out of your system. But the best way to actually end up working with people in the community is to support them. Give them information they could use. Warn them about things that you've seen that could be a challenge. Become a trusted source of information. Then they want you around. And then they go, what do you do anyway? And then the other thing I'll say is we grew in a manner that it was mostly word of mouth, right? And so if somebody knows something is awesome and the reason it's awesome is because it makes them feel a certain way, then what they tell that other person is, this community made me feel less lonely. It made me feel smarter. It made me feel hopeful. And that person coming in, that's their expectation. So we've had a few jackasses, right? And a few that are fairly well known. It wasn't me. But they came in and I even had some people say, why did you let that person in? And I said, because they're not going to stay. I've been doing this a long time. They're going to be here for 2 or 3 weeks, realize nobody cares about their snake oil bullshit, and they're going to leave. But if I told them they couldn't come in, they were going to raise holy hell. They were going to make it this big negative thing. When instead, in 2 or 3 weeks, they can tell me that they changed credit cards and they'll update later. And they never will, right? So I think that's it. I think the community protects the community. If somebody is a bad actor in there, I know because suddenly I have 27 DMs because everybody's watching. And then I guess the other thing is we give tacos.
And that's a great segue.
That's a great segue.
But honestly, the idea of giving tacos is so prevalent throughout the community. We do the Taco Tuesday thing. Anytime somebody is sharing something that a few people start to give a thumbs up or something like that, either myself or one of the Bureau ambassadors or somebody's going to come through and throw a taco just to get that going too. And that to me is one of the best things. And our onboarding video, I use this and I tell people also, we hand out tacos. So if somebody does something nice for you, give them a taco. Come on. So yeah, I think it's a big part of just showing that we're an appreciative bunch.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Yeah.
And all your support and inspiring us and making us laugh. But before we let you go, Carl, we have a little ritual that we do on this podcast.
Okay.
Everyone has 5 tacos, as you know, to give each day. Who are you giving your 5 tacos to today and why?
All right. Let's see. I'm going to give my first taco to my wife. This morning, she was hectically running around getting ready for a trip. And I was outside and she came outside and gave me a little chocolate candy. And I know, as hectic as her day was, taking that time to give me that little candy. And I looked at her and went, oh, thank you. And she goes, there were 2 left. I'm giving you one of them. I'm like, no, it's totally good. But she made that for me, right? I'm going to give one to Roma. Roma is one of my mom's caregivers. So my mom right now is in the hospital. She's fine. She's being released today. But Roma was able to help my mom transition from the hospital back to home so I could be on the podcast today. So thank you, Roma. Appreciate that. I will give one to Rob Haar, who is a good friend who runs Sparkbox. And he is single-handedly really putting on Operation Summit, which is an event we have coming up in a couple of weeks. Let's see, I did 3. I will give a taco, let's see, actually to my neighbor, John. I'm going to give him a taco because John came out and got his obnoxious dogs out of the yard so I could work. He sent me a text. He was like, I'm on it. So, and then I'm going to give my 5th taco. I'm going to split it. Y'all are going to have to share a taco. We're going to make it a salad, but I'm going to give a taco to y'all because, you changed our community in such a positive way. I'll say you amplified it. We always were in a situation of loving each other, but you gave us a means to share that love that's fun. So, taco to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carl.
Thanks for listening. One of the important things about building a team is gratitude. If you're looking to add more gratitude into your team, check out heytaco.com. We are clearly biased, but it really does work. Use the code AMAZINGTEAMS to receive 15% off for the first 3 months of your subscription.